Right, so it's Sunday now, and I was working on the cue, well, it's cue number 4, which I've called Into the Dark. It links acts 2 and 3, and the brief was heading off into the dark, walking into who knows what, slightly edgy, mysterious, into a lost world. And I did begin on a cue using the sort of same palette that I've been using elsewhere, sort of string section. But on listening back to it this morning, I'm not really liking it. It's a bit dirgy, and I just can't see where I'm going to take it, to be honest. So I'm going to completely abandon that, and we're going to have a look at a new cue. Not really liking that either. No, that's not working. I think I'm going to go and get a cup of coffee and have a think. Maybe come back to it. So I suppose this is the problem when you've only got certain days to work on. If you're not feeling particularly inspired and you've got a weekend and you want to get sort of, 3 or 4 cues done, that can be a bit of an issue. But sometimes it's just a case of, stepping away from the work for a bit. Say taking a break, have a cup of coffee, and then go back in with a fresh set of ears. And don't be afraid to completely scrap a piece of music. Don't just work and work at it. If it's not coming, it's pointless really. You're just wasting time, and it can be very frustrating. So I'm just reading through the script. I mean, honestly, I thought this one was going to be an easy one because I like the sound of it, slightly edgy and mysterious, walking off into the dark. So yeah, you never know when the creative muse will strike, do you? Anyway, I'm just going to finish my coffee and then I'm going to go back in. Right, that break really did me some good. I've come back in, fresh set of ears, and I've sketched something out which I really think I can work with. So I've used one instance of Spitfire Chamber Strings Ensemble, and I've got that set to spiccato. That's just for sketching. And also I've got the Bohemian cello in this case from Via Harmonic. So that again is a lovely instrument in the same range as the violin. And so basically what I've got is this. I mean, this is very simple stuff, but it gives you the idea of what the piece is going to be. And to me, I think that's much more along the lines that I was looking for. It's got that sort of feel of moving forward, so they're walking away into the dark, and also that slightly mysterious feel to it, which the cello is giving. So I'm going to crack on with this and try to get something a little bit better arranged. Obviously, this is sketched in and it's a little bit rough around the edges. So I'll carry on with that. 11 o'clock now, so I'd like to get this done before lunch, and I'll come back to you and see how I've got on. Right, so I've got on really well with that. It shows that once you've got the right piece of music, it does all sort of fall into place. And so I've got my strings are actually quite separated out now into their different parts, the different sections. I've got a cello line, the original cello line, just tightened up a little bit, and also some woodwinds, because this is going to be the colour palette that I'll be using for most of the play. I want some woodwinds in there, especially when we get to the sort of gypsy dance stuff. So what we've got is our violins at the top, and our violas. They're all working in concert with each other. Cellos are doing the low lines, and if we just highlight that, you can have a look and see what's going on there. Now what you'll also notice is that I'm using some expression maps. So these are swapping between staccato and spiccato, and it just means you can get a sort of more leisurely jun, da, 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 da. It's just giving you some different accents, so your spiccatos are sharper than the more leisurely staccato, still short. That just adds a little bit to the realism of the sound. So we'll remove that. Right down the bottom end with the cellos are the basses, but they're not actually playing lines as such. They're doing a Bartok pizz, which is very percussive, so you'll hear it here, sort of clicking, and it just accents the sound, which is rather nice. And then we've got our cello, which is doing, as I say, the same line, and our woodwinds which are complementing it. So as it comes out of the first section, we've got these two woodwinds, clarinet and flute. They are panned slightly, well, sort of midway left and right, so just to give that bit of spread in the sound. So if we go back to the beginning, the very beginning, I've also just added one instance of Albion 1, and what that is doing is it's creating a tremolo. So it only comes in right at the beginning, and it's literally just to introduce the rest of the track, which if I unsolo everything, sounds something like this. So I mean, this is actually quite a finished arrangement really, and I'm very happy with this. This is going to go off to Dorothy. I'll send a link through, and hopefully she'll like that as well. And the best thing in the world is that I can tick it off my list. So that's the sketch done. Right, that's that. What's next? Right, so on a roll now. The brief for that change between acts 3 and 4 was that the music should evoke they've come to terms with the loss of everything, but it should refer back to what happened in the first scene. So I've adapted the theme that I used between acts 1 and 2, and this is what it's sounding like. Much more upbeat, up-tempo, slightly more major key, but still fairly wistful sound. That red is the solo violin, and then I've just sketched in some chords underneath it. So again, a very rough idea of what the piece could be once I've properly developed it. And that is the last of the scene changes. So that's 4 pieces down. I've got 3 cues left to do. The dances, the folk dance and the waltz, and the one piece that goes over the dialogue. Actually got a day off, time off in lieu for a couple of evenings that I had to work. So it's Friday the 19th, and I've been working on the waltz, and this is really a very important part of the play and something that I really wanted to get done. And I started sketching something out. In fact, it was yesterday evening, and if we solo this up, this is what I was thinking of, and it pretty much just does that, but it was the start of the feel of what the waltz should be like. So if I mute that out, and I've developed that theme now, so if we go back again, you'll hear that, you know, what I'm doing here. So I've actually got this melody line now, which I think I'm going to be able to do something with. I mean, I know it sounds really rubbish at the moment, I haven't done it properly, but it gives me something to work from. Haven't quite finished this section yet. And you can hear I'm not really playing that line properly. I quite like this section at the end. I think that's going to work quite nicely. So you can hear this is, I mean, this is a work in progress, but that pretty much sketches out the melody that I want to use. So I'm going to continue with that today because I've got the whole day and I know this is going to be quite a lengthy process. I'm just going to work through, and then hopefully I'll have something that I can send through to Dorothy so she can start listening to that and saying, yeah, that's what I wanted, or, well, it's not Shostakovich, is it? Anyway, back to work. Right, so I've fleshed out the piece and looped it around. We've got some cellos and basses taking the main line here. So if we have a look at that, solo this up, you can see what's going on here. So we've got that ensemble. You'll also notice that I'm using an expression map here, so the cellos are staccato except for the end of these phrases where they go to pizzicato and then back to staccato. Even though this isn't the full arrangement yet, it's nice to have those little changes in there. On top of that, we also have the Bohemian violin, which is playing the solo line. And I'm doubling up the bassoons and basses to just give a bit of extra texture. Sorry. And then when we get to this section, get rid of all that, the cellos are now playing pizzicato as well, which just gives it a different flavour. And the slightly softer clarinet there. And then as we come to the end of this repeat, we go back through to the cellos doing staccato, and we've got the Bohemian violin and the clarinet and the bassoon all in there. So basically what will happen, I mean, that piece is, what is that, just over 1 minute, yeah, about 1 minute 10. This is designed as a loop, so at that stage it will go straight back to the beginning and start again, and that's the reason why I'm trying to create different textures within the piece of music so that it doesn't sound like a loop, it sounds like something that is developing. In fact, I may well extend it even further, but this will at least give Dorothy an idea of what's going on. When you're writing for theatre, it's not like writing for screen. You don't get an exact count of frames or seconds that you have to create the music for. You literally are creating music that has to be able to work with the actors, and if the actors are slower one night than another, then your piece of music has to be able to carry on if it's part of the scene. So that's why we tend to loop with things like this. Anyway, that's ready to go. I'm going to email that off, and then I've got to dash off down to London because I'm going to see my friends the Whiskey Priests playing a gig down at the Borderline, and I'm really looking forward to that, so don't want to miss my train.